Welcome in. Today's guest is author Claire Oxton. She is a women's contemporary author, and she has a three-book series called The Heart of Africa. Her third book, I do believe, is releasing this July. So, is that going to complete that series, or do you have more books that will continue with it?
So it's going to be a 6-book series. And I was originally hoping to get them all released in this year. Maybe that's not going to happen, but it should be released definitely like in the next year for sure. Um, so it was quite a learning curve to get going, to learn how to um, the whole process of how everything is, loading it up and getting it out. And so I think after these 3 books, once the third book is out, I'm going to take a little break and focus a little bit more on marketing and do a few more in-person things, which is easy. I'm in Canada, so it's easier to do that kind of stuff in the summer when you can drive without worrying about storms and ice and that kind of stuff. So
Right. Canada kind of gets some harsh winters, and
and they
you got
last forever. But
fine.
now, like summers are glorious. They're so great. It's my favorite season.
Good. So, talk a little bit about your plot, your characters. Where did you get this inspiration to write this series of books?
Okay, so I'll just plug my books here for a sec. So this is the first one, Whatever is True, and the second one that is out here is Whatever is Noble. The third one is called Whatever is Right, and the titles come from a Bible verse, Philippians 4 verse 8. So that follows that. So there is a little bit of religious, like Christian content, but that's not like the focus of the books. It's just that the main character is a Christian, so it comes up. But so what how I decided to start writing this book is I homeschool. And one of my kids was like, because I do sort of follow like the curriculum that they do in the schools, but then I plus it up or I change things, or I also give my kids an opportunity to dive into things that they're interested in. And so one
Mhm.
of my kids said, like, we don't know anything about Africa. I was like, sure, well let's find out. And so I tried to find some curriculum about Africa, and they sucked. Like, it's like they're all told from a very like white colonist point of view,
Right.
and or else they're just super dry. Like, this is the geography, and this is the capital city, and I was like, wow, I'm pretty sure there's a little bit more to Africa than this. So I started following all these like African vloggers, and um, I have some friends who are African immigrants. So I talked to them. I was like, you know, this is the point of view that we're getting of Africa. For me, I saw it's like, there's like war and famine, or there's people going on safaris, and there's like, people with weird piercings and funny clothes in the traditional garb, right? And it's like, you think that's what they have there. But there's actually just like normal people with like normal jobs and cell
Right.
phones, and they're driving their cars and just being very relatable, right? So like I feel like people have worked very hard to try and separate us and try to, and I'm like, we're all humans and we're trying to just do our same thing. So
Yeah.
um anyway, so I got so fascinated by all these things that when I decided to do like country by country, and there's 54 countries in Africa and a couple of disputed territories that might one day become countries. Um, so it's a lot. And each one of them has their own story. And so I had all this research, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to be able to share this with people like North Americans or
Mhm.
West or Europeans, I guess, like people who have been sort of fed the limited version of Africa. So, and I thought, what if someone like me was able to go to Africa and see all these things, except for have no money or um,
Right.
so I
Traveling
had
isn't exactly cheap.
right.
Mm.
So I thought, well, how would a person like me if I wanted to do a documentary series on Africa and show this stuff off, like how would I get this funding? And so anyway, at that same time, I got this little obsession with Tom Hiddleston reading poetry.
I could understand that.
Right? It's like,
I
whew,
could listen to him talk all day,
that man could just read the phone book and it would sound amazing.
right?
Um, so, which is weird because I'm not into celebrities like at all. So it's hilarious because I have my two main characters are celebrities. But anyway, so there's a character who's very much inspired by Tom Hiddleston, and his name is Ed Accrington. And and I thought, and I hike a lot in the Rockies. I'm pretty obsessed with the mountains. So I had an imagined encounter that if I ran into Tom Hiddleston on a mountainside, like what would I say to him? And I and like in real life, and I put this into my character, after listening to Tom Hiddleston read poetry, which is very inspiring, I actually started reading more poetry, and then I'd go to the library and I'd get books about, you know, poetry anthologies and people's commentaries on them. And so I thought, like, Tom Hiddleston probably usually people are asking him about his acting and that kind of stuff. But I thought if I met him, I'd want to talk to him about poetry. And that's how the first book, Whatever Is True, starts off, is that Claire is hiking and um and that Ed Accrington is filming a movie in the Rockies there. And it's like their last day and they decide to go for a hike. And she runs into him and she talks to him about poetry, and they kind of um it really affects him in a way that surprises him. And he finds out she's an audiobook narrator. Again, that's a little bit of me in the character. Because that's my day job, I guess. um so he asks her to collaborate on an audiobook project with him, and that sort of gets her into this world of different. She has to go to London to do the recording. And so she kind of gets into this world and she meets this other character whose name is Liam McTeer. And he was supposed to be a side character who was just sort of comic relief. The dude would not stay in his lane and he kind of took over the whole series. um, and they end up doing this podcast together, because he just did this around the world. He's very loosely inspired by Ewan McGregor.
Okay.
Um, and when I started writing the series, all I knew about Ewan McGregor was he played Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's got some shows where he like rides his motorcycle around. That's like the entire extent of my knowledge about Ewan McGregor. So I wrote this character, and he has an around the world tour on a motorcycle, but he's following Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days path. And my character Claire, she's a homeschooler, and she had written a whole curriculum about that book, Around the World in 80 Days, and did a deep dive in all these different locations. So they collaborate. So he's talking about his actual journey, and then she's talking about the more historical stuff and how the places have evolved over time. And anyway, so they end up becoming really good friends. And then so the first two books are just sort of setting up these relationships, and and then in the third book through the sixth book, they end up going to Africa. So I'm super, super excited for this third book to come out because they finally get to go. And in total, they end up doing 25 different countries in Africa. So each book is a season of their documentary, and they do 6 or 7 different countries, and they do a couple different episodes in each one. So I get to highlight some really interesting people and places and events. It's very heavily researched because
I
research
love
is,
research. So, I'm always rooting for people to do research in their books because I'm all about the research. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, so they what was I gonna maybe
Sorry.
okay. That's okay. So anyway, yes. that was my inspiration for the book. What was your next question?
No, that's all right. Uh, out of the out of all the books you have, was there a scene that was more difficult to write than maybe compared to some of the others?
Oh, yes, but it's a major spoiler. um, there is a death of a character. Um, they're not a major character, but it does affect the major characters quite a lot. So um, that was super, super difficult to write. Um, even now, I'm like, maybe I should change that because it's not till the end of book 5. I'm like, I could still change it, but I think it needs to happen. I don't know. It was,
Kind of part of that emotional intrigue and that drive. Sometimes you have to put those, those moments in that, you know, give the characters more empathy and make them more real because, of course, we all experience death in our life and
yeah,
we all process it differently. So you're probably right. It probably needs to be in there for the continuation of your books. I haven't read them, but I'm assuming, anyways. That's
yeah, yeah. It's there anyway. So, but
Would you mind giving us a little excerpt for one of your books that
okay,
you've written?
yeah. So I picked out. So this excerpt is from the third book that's about to come out, and in this scene, if my book will turn on. There we go. Um, they are going from South Africa into Lesotho. And Lesotho is this little tiny country that's completely surrounded by South Africa, and it's a mountainous country. Um, and so they're going on this pass called the Sani Pass. Have you heard of the Sani Pass?
I have.
Yeah, so that's where they're driving. And Claire is not like an adventurous person at all. So this is totally outside of her comfort zone. All right. Though Claire had driven through the pass via YouTube videos, they hadn't done justice to how terrifying the road actually was. Rawiri had instructed them to keep up a steady stream of commentary. Since Claire tended to ramble when she was nervous, this wouldn't be a problem for her. She sat in the front passenger seat next to Liam and tried to take solace in his steadfastness. He didn't seem at all concerned. I know you're not really a praying man, McTeer, but I think this road might just be enough to turn you into one, she said. His smile was a tad patronizing. I've got everything under control, Claire. She made the mistake of peering out a window down a particularly terrifying looking cliff, and she gasped. Holy crap! Is that a piece of a car down there? From some poor SOB who didn't make it around this bend? Her voice rose in pitch as she spoke. Once they'd started up the next switchback, where Claire was on the inside track, she unzipped her bag and pulled out her Mexican lava rock rosary. What have you got there? Ed asked. Claire held it up. Our Lady of Guacamole, she said. Ed exchanged a look with Finn, who shrugged. Ed ventured to say, Forgive me, my dear, but isn't it actually Our Lady of Guadalupe? I'm not Catholic, but Claire laughed. This one's guacamole, she insisted. There's a story. See, my dad bought a bag of tortilla chips that boasted the corn was stone ground by Mexican lava rocks, because that's important somehow. I told my dad I had this rosary made from Mexican lava rocks, so I should be able to grind corn and make holy tortilla chips, which I'd be able to sell at a premium, obviously. And if I used them to crush avocados, I could even make holy guacamole. Of course, I'd donate the money to the church. So that's how. Claire let out a high-pitched shriek. Their vehicle had tilted towards a precarious edge. For a moment, Claire's heart surely jumped all the way into her throat, and she truly, truly believed they were going to roll over the edge. Then the Mercedes righted, and they continued up the slope. Claire's heart was beating double time. I'm sorry, there was a giant pothole there. It was unavoidable, Liam said. A little warning would have been nice. I couldn't get a word in edgewise, Liam retorted, sounding slightly exasperated. Claire was still feeling shaken from having seen the edge of a cliff rotating towards her window. Well, next time, just yell over me or hit me or something. I thought we were going to roll over the edge. She thought you were going to put Our Lady of Guacamole to the test, laughed Finn. He was sitting behind Liam and hadn't just been terrified by watching the edge of the cliff suddenly rolling towards his head. Claire noticed Ed was still really pale. She turned back to talk to him. I was thinking about Bronte last night. She must be close to getting mobile now. She was relieved to see him taking a breath and wondered how long he'd been holding the previous one. She's started rolling. She'll go all the way across the parlor rug. Claire turned back to Liam. Just so we're clear, it's okay for babies to roll. It's not okay for cars to roll. Huh. I'll keep that in mind, he said as he maneuvered around a tight bend. Claire looked directly into the camera as she said, for the record, if we do go fanny over tea kettle down this slope, I want that place to get a cool name, not like Hemorrhoid Hill. I do not want my obituary to say my death had anything to do with hemorrhoids. Amen to that, Ed agreed. What's a hemorrhoid? Asked Finn. All three adults started laughing. You're the mom. You'll need to take this one, Liam said. I think it has to be Ed. If he can make math equations sound attractive, I want to hear what he can do with a description of hemorrhoids. A heavy sigh sounded from the back seat. Then Ed started speaking in his sultriest voice. Hemorrhoids, also known as piles, result when certain veins become. Here, Ed paused and licked his lips before saying, in a definitely erotic way, swollen and engorged in the private area of the human body. Oh, for feck's sake, cut that out, Liam said. I'm trying to drive here. Finn, hemorrhoids are sores you get on your asshole. No one's idea of a good time, I assure you. Your father calls them asteroids, Claire said. Lord have mercy, said Liam. Did I not predict he'd be a praying man before this trip up the mountain was over? Claire asked. That's that.
3 things.
Okay.
1, that was probably the best excerpt I've heard so far. 2, you should really consider that podcast and where you are reading other people's books. I mean, certainly your own, but with reading other people's, because you are fantastic.
Yes, that's my day job.
Oh, okay. Because
Yeah.
I've got a couple books for you that you would be perfect at reading.
All right.
But
yeah,
so when
so
you were
I just
sorry.
work part-time. I do work part-time as an audiobook narrator, and I have about 50 books on Audible. Most of them are under another name that I narrate under.
Okay. Well, maybe you and I can talk after this show about you coming to reading my books for Audible, because I've been looking for voices for my books, and I have rejected everyone so far because there isn't nobody gives me the tingles. I need the tingles to feel like it fits. So
Yeah.
you and I should talk about that.
All right.
But anyways, so when you were writing that specific scene, did it always sound like that in your head, or kind of has the characters evolved for you?
So whenever I write a scene, especially one that's dialogue heavy, I actually develop it in my brain for quite a long time before I write it down. So I talk to my characters. I spend a lot of time talking to my characters like a crazy person.
You know what? I think that's
I
just
want to
par
know
for
who
the
they
course.
are, like how they would approach different situations, and so um yeah, so then when it comes to writing the scene, it comes out very naturally. I know how each person would speak, how they'd be reacting in different, like Liam is super steady, like nothing's gonna knock him over, like he's just very rational, I guess. And Ed is also rational, but he's much more. So Ed is more like an upper class British sort of character,
Mhm.
um, very proper, and Liam is way more relaxed and not. This is like easy go lucky sort of. Um, and then Finn, who was the other character in the book, is Claire's teenage son, who's with her in Africa on this because she homeschools, and she's like, "Well, I can't just leave him," and they're like, "Bring him along."
We're going to talk about a little bit about publishing. Now,
Okay.
you are you self-publish, you independent publish. Have
Yeah.
did you just go straight to that path? Did you try submitting for traditional or small press publishing at all or
Well, I tried. I didn't officially submit anything, but when I talked to different publishers, the consensus was no one would touch a series by an unknown author. And because I didn't want to just offer the first book as a standalone, I wrote the whole series as one book. So if someone wasn't willing to publish the entire series, I didn't want to go with them because for me, it's like the Lord of, not that I'm like Tolkien, but it's like the Lord of the Rings is one book, right?
right,
So, Tolkien wouldn't have just been like, here, just publish the first one and we'll see how it goes, because you have to get through the whole story. And so
right.
that's how I feel about my book is that you can read the first book as a standalone, I guess, if that's all you want to do. But then you're missing all the cool stuff about Africa. So don't do that. um, but yeah, so basically the message I got from the publishing world like last year when I went to a big publishing conference, was that it was very unlikely that anybody would want to pick up my series. So, and because I worked with so many indie authors. Most of my audiobook work is with indie authors, and so I was familiar with the um, that world,
Right.
and and then I think it can be done really well. I hired an editor, and I've got okay, so I got to do a plug for my cover designer. His name's Nick Jones, and he's British, but he lives in Spain, and he's sort of we have like a mutual friend who set us up. You can't, the colors aren't really showing so good on here, I think, but it's really got a beautiful color, like a turquoise. And then
I
this
was
is
going to comment on that. Your covers are all very beautiful and they all stand out and they are very well done.
Yeah, and I like that there. So this is them. So in the second book, Claire and her family and Liam and his friend all do a tour of the Canadian Rockies on motorcycles. Um, so for me, I think I said earlier, I love the Rockies. So it was really cool to be able to share that. And I've been to all the places that are mentioned in that book, but I haven't in the last few years. So after writing that, I'm totally inspired this summer. I'm going to do like this big trip in the Rockies. I don't actually ride a motorcycle myself. That's my character is much more daring than me.
You know what? It's probably okay. Uh, have you, since you are an indie author, do you utilize a lot of your local bookstores for support? Have they been, pretty accepting or
So I haven't done enough promotion, that's for sure. So I'm still, I just, I was gonna, I was afraid I was gonna chicken out. So I got my first book out on Amazon before I had figured out all the stuff about doing it with like Ingram Spark so that I could get it into the bookstores and the libraries and stuff. So I'm still working on that aspect of it. But I thought, well, it's better to get it out there imperfectly than to just hold on to it until all the stars align before I lose my nerve and drop the whole project.
yeah,
So I wasn't originally going to publish it all. Like I just sort of wrote it for myself to start with. But after like 6 books, I thought, maybe somebody else wants to read this. So I got a couple of beta readers who gave very, very positive feedback and said, yeah, definitely you need to move forward with this. So I want to, especially Melody Pate, I got to give a big shout out to her because we were in this other author fan group together for this author named C.N. Rowan, who is amazing. He's another indie author that writes sort of dark, what's sort of a dark fantasy, but it's comedic too. And his
Mhm.
writing is beautiful. And anyway, we were in this fan group together and I just sort of picked her out because she seemed like a kindred spirit, you know. And since she started reading my books, we become like best friends. So we talk every day. She lives in North Carolina. And and yeah, it's been super interesting to see. I've developed some really strong friendships from people who have been helping me out with my books. And um, I love the indie author community. I mean, there's a couple bad eggs maybe, but like overall, like everyone
Right.
has been so supportive. And the way people have, promote each other and build each other up and encourage each other. I absolutely love that.
Yeah. That's kind of my favorite thing about the the indie community, especially on Facebook. I've been on the community on a couple other um platforms, but the one on Facebook is probably my favorite. Um and yeah, everybody's just kind of, we're all out here. Most of us, not all of us, but yeah, most of us I think are out here, to support each other because we all know that we have to work so much harder to get our books out there and noticed, um, compared to traditionally published authors. So
Mm.
I've found that, very very kind of rewarding and satisfying, the different people, the different authors that I've come across. And I've read some really great books.
Yeah. I'm feeling
I
bad because I have such a big TBR. um, and I think I just spent so much time just working out how to get my own books out and rushing them so much that that's one of the other reasons why I am putting a bit of a gap between the third book and the fourth book is because I need to renew myself, but also like I actually want to have time to read my friends' books and promote
right
them.
now I get it. I did kind of a little bit of a break in between my first book and my second book. It took about 3 years for me to get my second book out, but I had done a lot of research with that book as well and had a few bumps along the way. Um, but yeah, that first book, I put so much energy into it and time, and then lots of promoting, and it kind of, and I did a lot of shows and book signing events, and it was kind of draining. I'm I'm I am a true introvert. I am not an overly sociable person. And so the all the social engagements that you have to participate in as an indie author is kind of draining. So I found, for like a year I needed to just kind of take off and not do any more, not do any real promoting and marketing. I just kind of needed a break from all of that. So I totally get that. Um, we'll go back into your books.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's a local writing society that's super supportive of indie authors. And there's one bookstore in particular I live in Calgary, Alberta, and it's called Owl's Nest Books.
mhm,
And they are fantastic. They're an indie bookstore and they love indie authors. They'll host book launches. And then every month, this writing society, the Alexandra Writer Society,
mhm.
um, at that bookstore they host a open mic night for local authors, and it was just there last night. It is so fantastic. I didn't even do a reading. I just go to listen. I mean, sometimes I will, but there's like they can only fit so many people in, and I'm always late, so
Right.
I never hardly ever get on the list. But just listening to um, all the local talent, and it's such a good variety. There's like romance, and then there's ghost stories and poetry and all kinds of stuff. So it's just a really great way to connect with other local authors, and
Mhm.
they run a whole bunch of programs. So I don't know if other people in your area, if there's a writer's society. It's I love the online community, but there's something about the in-person community that's really special also.
Yes. And we do kind of have that. I think it's more for poetry, open mic, which I've never had a chance to go to. I'm a single mom, and so I don't really get a lot of babysitters,
Yeah.
unless it's for when I go to work. But outside of that, everything's kind of around my children's schedule.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I wonder if there are online groups where you could do something similar without having to
to
leave your
leave your
house.
house, that
Yeah.
would be nice. I don't know. I guess I've never really looked into that, but that would be something to check out because I mean that would connect you with, people all over the world. So that could be interesting.
Mhm.
That's a good thought. I'm gonna like write that down, remind myself I need to check that out.
I'm thinking like if this doesn't exist, maybe I should create it.
Right? There you go. That could be your next big venture.
Yeah, we could have like a Discord group or something. I don't know.
Yep. So as a self-published author, uh, when you hit that publishing button, did you have any oops moments? Like,
Did I? Yes, I did. Um, I had, oh my gosh. So the whole thing was I had a plan that I wanted to release it so that it would be out for my birthday, the first book, and my birthday's January 17th. So I had this plan. But what I didn't realize, so in Canada, we're very blessed in that we can get ISBN numbers for free from the government. But you have to go through this like application process. And I didn't realize it was going to take months to get
mhm,
like how long how hard is it to process my paperwork, but it's free,
right,
so we can't really complain. Like the healthcare system. Like it's free, but I had to wait.
right,
So anyway, so I didn't end up getting my ISBN until like a week before my birthday or something, and so I couldn't enter my so I just the way it all worked out is that I couldn't coordinate my release for the ebook, paperback, and audiobook all at once and still have it all come out for my birthday. So I ended up having to stagger. So I got the ebook out right away because that's fast. And then it took me a little bit to figure out the paperback because there were some issues with like they didn't like the format of my cover image. For some reason, the KDP like scaled it so that it was like super zoomed in and
mhm,
wasn't like I don't know. I'm technically terrible. So I had to send it to my cover designer and be like, I don't know what's wrong, but please make it better. And he fixed it all up. Um, and then there was a couple little typo, like I ordered the proof copy from like the author proof copy. And I was so glad I did because there were some weird formatting issues, like for some reason like the page numbers on the left side and the right side were different fonts, and then I have a lot of scenes where they're texting each other and I have it all formatted, and there were some where the formatting didn't transfer over properly.
mhm,
So little things like that. And um I forgot to change the cover page in my ebook. It still said it was an ARC copy when I sent it out. So just like little things that I mean they all got fixed, right?
right,
But just and then I was like, oh yeah, I got to remember to update my website and say like now the book is out, and just all the different platforms. So there's a lot of making lists and checking them twice and still missing all the things, but you just kind of got to laugh it off and just fix it and
yes,
do what you got to do.
right. Well, being an indie author, there's a lot that goes into it, and if you aren't an indie author, I don't think you really understand, all the work that you have to do.
It's
You know,
so
it's
much. Like I get why people use those like intermediary like publishers that will help you. Like you're still an
right.
indie author, but they'll help you find a cover designer because I had to go through um so I felt really bad. So I actually had hired this one cover designer and she was good. Um but then my friend I hadn't told my friend that I was working with her, and she went out and contacted the guy who I ended up using, and she just told him about my um book, and I guess she convinced him to do a little mock-up and send it to me, even because she didn't know I was working with this other author. But I just so fell in love with what he did, and then I had to tell this other designer, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm going with someone else. I still feel bad. But
Mhm,
I still think I could use her for other projects, so
mhm,
hopefully that we can still work together. um but it was, I mean, I did go through like quite a few cover designers, talking with them and getting ideas and trying to, so that was a whole big thing. And then the editing, um so there's a society in Canada called Editors Canada, and then there's a more local one, Editors Calgary. So I like put out like a request for an editor, and then a whole like maybe like half a dozen people responded, and so I had to go through all of them, and they did samples. I'm like, they all seem good, I don't know which one to pick.
right.
So I ended up picking one who's because like the two main male characters are British, and there's a lot of the books are set in the UK. And so the editor I ended up going with is, she lives in Canada, but she's from the UK. So she
Mhm,
has both perspectives. So she's been fantastic. Her name's Jackie Lewis, and Spotlight Editing Services.
all right.
It's fantastic. And then so there's the editing, and then just the whole process of getting it up on KDP. There's so many questions, and like, what does this mean? So that Writing Society, the local one that I mentioned, they put on a course that was like a 4-week course that was just about how to get your book up on KDP, and went through every single step. And like they helped us with, we talked about like the whole process of getting the editing and cover designer, writing your blurb, and then some basic marketing strategies and how ads work, and like it's so much. And then I took a whole nother workshop on branding, and like there's just so many things. And then there's all the different social media platforms. Like you cannot have other jobs and responsibilities, so I can't be like a full-time dedicated to going on all the platforms and promoting all the things. So I pretty much just, I do a little bit on Instagram, but Facebook is my focus, because I
Mhm.
think my target audience is mostly like middle-aged women, and I'm told that's where they are. So
You just kind of never know because people have such an eclectic taste when it comes to books. And, you know, I, so I write, my first book was a dark romance, right? Which, there's kind of a certain demographic that usually, but when I do book signing events, most of the people who buy my books are over the age of 60
oh wow.
reading my dark romance novels because I'm always like, I want to tell you that
You're
there,
thinking that they're there for like 30 something women, but
right, or younger, even maybe late 20s, 30s, even 40s, but a lot of people over the age of 60 buy my book, and I'm always like, there are explicit scenes in this. I just want to be very honest with you. And they're like, it's okay. And I'm like,
you're like, I've been around the block. I'm familiar with these scenes.
right, right. But I always get more nervous when somebody older is
Okay, so the
interested.
this the most surprising thing about my books is how many men have read them and like given me really positive feedback about it.
Mhm.
I was like, maybe I'm marketing them wrong. Like I'm marketing it as contemporary women's fiction, but like apparently it's okay for men too. Um,
Right.
yeah, there's this one guy who I met on Facebook, and he's 94 years old. And he's a widower, and he's read both my books and reviewed them. And I'm like, you're amazing. Um, but yeah, like did not see 94-year-old man as my, target demographic. But
Right.
and this other guy's like you know, father of four from Ohio. Like I'm like, did not have you in my sights at all as someone who went
Hmm.
through my book. But again, very positive feedback. So okay.
Hey, you just kind of got to go with it, right? Like everything else. So outside of reading, who are you? What other, and you've talked about being a stay-at-home mom um and homeschooling, kind of what, and you've talked about, doing some audibles. But what else? Do you have any other kind of hobbies that you like to do? Anything else outside of writing?
um I do. So back in my youth, I my education is mechanical engineering. So I worked as a mechanical engineer for quite a number of years before um, becoming a mom, and then I ended up staying home, which wasn't exactly in the plan, but that's how it worked out. And then I started homeschooling, but I'm a really avid hiker, not super, like I'm not like hardcore. I just do day hikes. I'm not like, gonna do the Florida Trail or whatever. But, I do love my mountains and just getting out. So beautiful here. Um, and I do a bit of art, which again was a surprise because in school, um, like in art class, I just kind of thought I really sucked. And there are many, many more talented artists out there than me. I don't have like a vision, or I can't really come up with my own images, but I can copy other images.
Hmm.
So I actually, maybe I'll tilt up. So you can't really see it, but this in the corner up, where are we? There. There's a bird. So
Okay.
I do a lot of bird paintings and stuff. Um, Sort of realistic bird things, but I have a few. So what happened was one of my kids is sort of artistic. And then, so for school, I had to teach art class. And I started doing a lot of art history. And we do spotlights on different artists like Monet or Van Gogh or Andy Warhol, and just sort of did a deep dive into their art. And then I'd come up with different projects based on their styles or techniques that we would incorporate. And um, I really enjoyed the whole creation process. And so I started taking art classes, and that was a big surprise for me because I never considered myself artistic at all.
Hmm.
And it sort of developed recently. So that's been fun. And right now, my current project that I'm working on is a painting. So I used to have this piano that I got when I was about 7, and it was old then. And um, it just got to the point a couple years ago that it was not really salvageable. Like I was going to have to put like thousands of dollars into it to make it sound halfway decent. And I just thought, well, if I'm going to spend thousands of dollars, maybe I should just get a newer piano. And so we ended up retiring my sweet piano. But I had that piano for like 25 years. So we bonded. So I kept a piece of the piano. It used to be a player piano that got converted into a regular piano. So it
Hmm.
had this panel that would open up where you would, put the spools or whatever originally. And so the part that opened up, I took that out, and it's sort of hard to describe, but the part around it I'm using as a frame. And then the middle part, I'm putting a painting of a piano keyboard. And the keys are all sort of with different patterns on them that's inspired by architecture from Yemen, if you've ever seen like the way they use the geometric patterns and stuff like that. And so I've got every octave is a different color scheme. So I'm super excited. And I'm going to put that up and mount it on the wall above my new piano.
Well, when you finish that, you have got to post it because I want to see it.
Yeah, I I got sort of stalled for a little bit because it was a little bit more muted than I wanted. And so I went and talked to my art teacher the other day, and she's just like, this is good. You just have to make the lines thicker. I'm like, oh. And so I did that. It was like completely transformed it. I was like, yeah. So it's nice to be able to get feedback from other people. Same with your writing too, right? Like it seems
Yeah.
like, I'm like, this scene seems fine. And then you share it with somebody and they just give you a little perspective.
Yeah. Um, One last question here, and then we're gonna get things wrapped up. I know that you said you haven't done a whole lot of reading here lately. Yeah, huge TBR. But what was the last book that you read that made you wish you had written it?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of good books out there. I read a lot of nonfiction.
Mhm.
Um, so one of my friends is right now involved in a very um, narcissistic abusive relationship. And so I read this, I wanted to understand their situation and what they have been going through. So I read a book and it's called It's Not Me by Dr. Ramani Durvasula or something like that. Dr. Ramani for sure. And she also has like a YouTube channel and podcast and stuff. And she just talked about like the experience of victims of narcissistic abuse that I thought was super, super helpful. So I I would like to be able to write a book that could help people who are one of the problems with narcissistic abuse is that it's so insidious that like it's not like other kinds of like physical abuse where it's really obvious that someone is
Mm,
being, that the abuse is so obvious, but it's more
subtle.
subtle and it's more like death by a thousand cuts, right? So if one day I wrote a book that could help people see that you're not alone, you're not crazy, and whatever you're going through, like we're all going through something. Hopefully,
Mhm.
most of us don't have to face something like that, but we've
Right.
all got something, right? And it's just if I had a way to let people know that like what you're experiencing is real and it's not permanent and you're going to be okay and you're not
And
alone.
it's not your
So,
fault.
yeah. Yeah. And even if I think one of the ways that people get stuck is that, if you're in an abusive relationship and then, you respond in ways that are kind of going against your values just because you've been under so much pressure for so long. And then you're
Mhm.
like, well, clearly I'm the problem because look how I responded. Right.
Right.
So like, but that's, just understanding who you are is not, there are so many layers, right? And you can't
Mhm.
just judge yourself on one facet of what you've experienced.
Well, I will definitely read that book if you ever write it.
Okay. I even try to do it in my novels. Like I have like Claire, her character, I don't really into a lot of her history, but she grew up in an abusive home. And so she has a little bit of PTSD in certain situations.
Mhm.
Um, but the way that her team like rallies around her and supports her, I have a big theme um, about like mutual encouragement
Mhm.
and how that can transform people.
Well, I'm gonna have to add your books to my TBR list because they do sound really fascinating, especially, all the building up to go into Africa and explore that. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely curious about
The
that.
first book is super light-hearted, I think. I kind of set Claire up to be like, it's almost like a fairy tale, like all these things are going right. And that's so later I can like do mean things to her.
We all have
They're
to do
better than
that,
that.
right? To kind of keep people on the edge because it can't all just be simple, right?
Right. So I feel like I'm sort of misleading people in the first book. They're like, what a happy story. I'm like, oh. it
Just
is
wait.
it is pretty optimistic overall, but I mean, just like anybody's life, things happen, right?
Right. For better or worse, for sure. All right. Well, I have really enjoyed getting to hear about your story and your journey and into the publishing world. And I absolutely wish you the best on, the success of your other four books and anything you choose to do afterwards. And I really hope that you come back and talk with me again. Um, before I let you go, would you let everybody know where they can find you online and where they can find your books?
For sure. So my books are all available on Amazon and Audible. Again, it's whatever is noble and whatever is true. The Heart of Africa series by Claire Oxton, and my email, or not email, my website is claireoxton.ca because Canada. And then I'm on Instagram and Facebook at with Claire Oxton author.
Perfect. Thank you again so much for coming in and talking with me today.
Right. Thank you. It was my absolute pleasure.
Good. I will chat with you again later, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Thank you.